Hello and welcome to another EstablishTheRun.com screencast. Of course, I'm Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at Establish the Run, and today, as promised, I will be reviewing the winning lineup of the Week 14 ETR contest on DraftKings. Goal here is simple: just talk about some strategies, try to learn from some winning lineups, and just frankly get better at DFS tournaments through some review. So I'm going to talk about the winning lineup from this Week 14 contest. I'm also going to discuss, after that, I'm going to discuss one of my three GPP teams from Week 14. So without further ado, let's get into it. Note that Week 14, this contest was 3,000 entries. It was a $3 entry. It was $3 to get in. It was 3 entries max. And take a look at the structure here, and I think that's important. Well, first of all, note that there's no rake, and that's important too. You know, $3 times 3,000 entries, $9,000 obviously in the prize pool. And it's just incredibly important to be rate conscious, I think. And we can do some math on it another time, kind of to show why. But shout out to the guys at DraftKings for hooking up all the ETR people with the rake free contest. I also wanted to mention the payout structure here, which is very, very flat. And by flat, I mean 500, 400, 300, 250, 200, etc. In a lot of the contests on DraftKings, there's really not that much value in just getting to the top 10. In this, there is. In most tournaments on DraftKings, there is way, way, way more money to first. In fact, so much money goes to first place that from a theory perspective, it's often correct to build lineups that literally only go for first place. But we don't necessarily have that in this payout structure here. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and look at the winning lineup here. And it went to Bickham. Congrats to you, sir or lady. The stack that Bickham went with was Ryan Tannehill at 4.4%, AJ Brown at 6.4% owned. And I think given the context of this slate at quarterback, I mean, there was really nothing that jumped off the page too much at quarterback. To get this one at such a low ownership was really, really nice. And the matchup fit really well too. You know, Oakland gives up big plays in the pass game. That's how you beat them. That's the best way to attack them, is with the deep ball. And Ryan Tannehill and AJ Brown have been both insanely efficient and just insanely efficient on explosive plays. And you don't see that very often. They haven't needed volume to get there. So I thought AJ Brown was slightly overpriced at 5,300. But in tournaments, players, who don't project too well due to price and opportunity metrics are often great plays as long as they have a ceiling. And as we've seen with AJ Brown this season already as a rookie, like, ceiling is clearly there. Dude is a real baller. Then Bickham went with some of the strong cash plays, some of the plays that we talked about in top plays like Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson and Ian Thomas and Melvin Gordon and Colts defense. Again, a reminder that we don't have to avoid plays that we like just because they'll be highly owned. I think the important part is to A, balance out your lineup with some lesser owned plays, and B, decide which higher owned plays you think are being overvalued. So in this case, for example, Bickham didn't play Bilal Powell, et cetera, et cetera. Aaron Jones' play is interesting. Aaron Jones was not a cash play for me because I think the timeshare with Jamal Williams is so stark, and the touchdown dependence from Aaron Jones. When you can only give someone a 15 touch projection and yet he has the upside to score 4 touchdowns, well, of course he's not going to be a cash play. But as we've seen this year, Aaron Jones has huge games in the right game flows and the right situations. He has such a high ceiling despite the timeshare. Clearly the favorite target for the Packers in the red zone. At least when they're rushing the ball. So, and also one thing about Aaron Jones too is he gives you major leverage off of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, which was a popular stack, right? So all the people that had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, you don't have that here. You have Aaron Jones instead. If he happens to get the touchdowns, if he happens to pick up the yardage instead of Rodgers and Devontae, not only does your lineups go up, but all the Rodgers-Adams stacks become dust. Also, Zach Pascal, I think, is a really strong play. No doubt number one receiver going against the Bucs. And I mean, it doesn't take much more deep analysis than that. 5,500 number one receiver against one of the biggest pass funnels we've ever seen. So good against the run, so bad against the pass. And only 9.9% to get Zach Pascal at 9.9%, I think is just a total print fest. So yeah, I really like this team. Bickham did not need to go out of his way to be contrarian, I don't think. He just played an under-owned stack. Stayed away from Bilal Powell, who I mentioned was 49% owned in this, and Alvin Kamara, who was 33% in this, he stayed away from that also. So nice job by Bickham. All right, let's go ahead and go to the team in 317th place, and that is me, your humble narrator. One of only three. I put in three teams, obviously, as you can see in this, and only one cashed. I think my favorite offense of the week for tournaments by far was the Falcons, and I think people had been blinded a bit by some of the rough games that the Falcons offense has had lately. But those games came with significant injury context. But now, for this game, Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Austin Hooper, even Chris Lindstrom, the rookie guard, they were all healthy. And so I also thought that Christian McCaffrey and Ian Thomas in the same game were really strong plays. So it's set up really well for a game stack. And to get Matt Ryan at 5.3%, Julio Jones at 6.5%, I didn't love the spot for Julio Jones coming off of his injury, facing James Bradbury, who I have respect for. And I think a shaky target share for Julio, given that Austin Hooper was back and Devontae and Ridley was out there. The target share was shakier than it normally is, I think, in previous seasons for Julio. But, I couldn't face playing Calvin Ridley at 6,700 over Julio at 7,500. And given the ownership here, I think that was right, to get Julio, Matt Ryan 5.3% and 6.5%, I think is really strong. Also added in Devontae Freeman, who plays in the past game, certainly can play him with Matt Ryan. And, one thing about playing Ryan and Devontae Freeman together, I thought it would give me, hopefully, access to all of the Falcons' touchdowns in a game I expected the Falcons to ring up a lot of points home against the Panthers being completely healthy. And then, as I mentioned, Christian McCaffrey and Ian Thomas at really high ownership, but the idea of a game stack, right? Like McCaffrey and Ian Thomas are owned, but how owned are they in the context of also having Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones? I bet not very many people in this tournament had Christian McCaffrey and Ian Thomas in that context. So yeah, the idea of a game stack is really how do these offenses interact? Can both sides make big plays? They both have underpriced, undervalued players. If one team goes nuts, can the other one rack up points in garbage time? Does the game have a chance to go to overtime? I think the answers to all those were yes. So I thought it was a really good spot for a game stack. Then I filled out the rest of the team with Robbie and Pascal, just like Bickham. We both had Robbie and Pascal. And at the bottom there, I wanted to talk about was Jalen Richard. And I played Jalen Richard down there in the flex on purpose. We didn't have the Josh Jacobs news at 1 o'clock, whether Josh Jacobs was going to play or not. But I thought there was enough of a chance that Josh Jacobs would sit out that it was worth saving a spot for Jalen Richard. So I made sure to have a 4 p.m. defense in there as well in the Chargers, so that I had flexibility to swap with some pricing. So I could have saved some money at defense and gotten up to LaShawn McCoy or Darwin Thompson or Kenyon Drake, in the event that Josh Jacobs ended up playing, right? And you can see the value in that. Jalen Richard only 1.3% owned, maximum value, maximum leverage against the field. If Josh Jacobs was ruled out on Friday, Jalen Richard would have been 25% owned or something like that. Now, of course, I got this wrong. DeAndre Washington was the one to play, not Jalen Richard, who only ended up with 6.6 points. But I think the thought process here was right and super valuable, in late news, and using late swap is going to be a key to our arsenal, especially in 3 max tournaments where, we don't have a ton of lineups. We can really focus on ones like this. All right. Thanks for checking out this review. Feel free to drop any comments or questions below. We will be doing our full content at Establish the Run through the Super Bowl. Use promo code ETR20 for 20% off any weekly or monthly purchase. I will drop a link in the description below. So, for my dog Jerry behind me, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.